Millionaire left shocked after hearing two words from little girl asking about mom's job. Nathan Hale sat alone in his penthouse, the city sprawling beneath him like a restless beast. The rain hammered against the massive windows, its rhythm broken now and then by distant thunder growling low and deep. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Soft shadows flickered in the dim light, and the gleam of glass and steel furniture caught what little glow the storm allowed. Nathan's fingers tapped absently on the mahogany table, steady but slow, his face a mask of calm. This was his world, polished, controlled, untouchable. Then, the doorbell interrupted the silence. A quick knock, footsteps, the soft, tentative voice of Emma, the 7-year-old daughter of his longtime housekeeper, Grace, broke through like a sudden breeze on a still night. "Mr. Hale, can I ask you something?" she said, eyes wide and nervous. "Nate, what does Mom really do here? I mean, what's her job?" Just those two simple words, Mom's job, hit Nathan like a lightning strike. His chest tightened. The steady rhythm inside his penthouse flipped upside down. A lump rose in his throat, and his eyes tracked the rain outside, but didn't see it. He'd known Grace for years, trusted her implicitly. The woman who kept this place spotless, who baked pies on weekends and laughed like they were family. But Emma's innocent question yanked a veil he hadn't realized was still hiding shadows. The city below buzzed with chaos, horns blaring, people rushing, an unseen pulse of life far away from this high-rise sanctuary. And yet here, in the bubble of luxury and quiet, a crack appeared. Nathan wondered if he'd ever truly known the woman who ran the apartment, cleaned his world spotless. Suddenly, the polished walls seemed colder. The thunder rolled again, louder this time, shaking the glass slightly. Nathan's mind raced. Had Grace, the silence between them grew thick. Emma's small face searched his. Nathan's brow furrowed, heart pounding hard enough he could almost hear it in the storm's roar. What truth lay buried beneath years of polite smiles and endless chores? What secret did Grace carry behind those tired eyes? His mind flashed back to countless mundane moments. Grace slipping quietly through the rooms, hushed phone calls, mysterious absences. None had registered until now. The question that had seemed so simple became a puzzle with dark edges. Nathan's hands clenched the armrests. He wanted to ask more, push for answers, but the words stuck. All he could offer was a silent look, heavy with confusion and something else. Fear, maybe, or the sharp sting of betrayal. Rain lashed harder, thunder booming like an accusation. Outside, the city kept moving, but Nathan was frozen, trapped in a moment that would shatter more than just a quiet night. Nathan's breath caught. The luxury, the power, they all felt suddenly fragile. His world was changing. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The storm outside roared louder, as if demanding answers Nathan wasn't ready to give. Emma's tiny frame shifted nervously beside him. Something unspoken hung in the air, thick and heavy. Nathan swallowed hard. Emma. Your mom's job? He echoed. His V, she nodded slowly. Yeah, I never really thought about it before. I just know she's always here. All the time. Her eyes searched his, wide and innocent. Nathan blinked and turned away. The room felt suddenly colder. Lightning split the sky, flinging shards of light through the windows. He felt trapped behind the walls of his own penthouse, between a question and the secret he'd buried deep. Then his phone buzzed sharply on the table. A text. From an unknown number. The words appeared, chilling and clear. You've been warned. Stop digging into the past, or there will be consequences. Nathan's skin prickled. He looked at Emma, who was quiet now, watching him with a child's trust. And something else. Maybe fear. Before he could say anything, the silence was shattered by a loud, echoing slam at the front door. Heavy footsteps thundered in the hall. Nathan's heart jumped. Someone was here, and it wasn't Grace or Emma. The door burst open. 2 men stepped inside. Dark suits, faces hard and cold like stone. One held a folder. The other scanned the room with sharp eyes. Nathan Hale? The first man demanded. Yes, Nathan said, standing, his voice steadier than he felt. We need to talk. Now. Nathan's mind raced. Who were these men? What did they want? But before he could ask, the second man pulled something from his coat. A photograph. He slammed it on the table. Nathan's breath caught. It was Grace, only not how he knew her. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. A police mugshot, dated 10 years ago. Her face was older, worn, eyes haunted. Grace wasn't always your housekeeper, the man said, voice low and grim. She's been running from her past. We were ordered to find her. Nathan stared, numb. Emma began to tremble, clutching his arm. Why didn't she tell me? Nathan whispered, heart pounding like a drum. The man leaned in, voice grim. Because what she did, it's tied to a crime you'd never imagine. And it's about to catch up with all of you. Lightning struck again, as if on cue, smashing a nearby streetlight. The room plunged into darkness for a moment. Then the emergency lights flickered on, casting long, harsh shadows. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Nathan felt dizzy, trapped in a nightmare unraveling faster than he could breathe. The second man pulled out another picture. This one, of a man Nathan didn't recognize, standing beside Grace, a gun in his hand. Her husband, a killer, still at large. Nathan's chest tightened, his fingers shook. The truth slammed down like a wave. Grace's life, their quiet world, was built on secrets deeper and darker than he'd ever guessed. And Emma's simple question, the one about her mom's job, it was just the first crack. The surface was breaking, and beneath it was something brutal, dangerous, impossible to ignore. Nathan looked at Emma, his heart breaking for her. How much had she known? How much had been hidden? The door creaked behind them. Footsteps again. Closer. Too close. Suddenly, a whispered voice from the hallway. "Grace, you can't hide forever." The room froze. Nathan exhaled, slow and sharp. The past wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. What was Grace running from? And how far would it drag them all down before the nightmare ended? The door creaked behind them. Footsteps again. Closer. Too close. Suddenly, a whispered voice seeped through the hallway. "Grace, you can't hide forever." The room froze. Nathan exhaled, slow and sharp. Then, without warning, the lights flickered violently. The emergency glow spasmed out. Darkness swallowed the penthouse whole. A crash. A scream. Emma's small hand gasped against Nathan's sleeve. "What was that?" she whispered, eyes wide as saucers. Nathan stood, heart pounding like a drum. He couldn't stop. He reached for the wall switch. Nothing. The city's storm seemed louder now. Rain slashing the glass like blades. A soft shuffle came from the hall. Then a staggering thud. Nathan's breath caught. The door to the hallway creaked open again. But this time, it wasn't the two men. It was Grace. She looked different, hollowed out. Her eyes wild, like someone chasing shadows. "Run," she hissed, voice breaking. "They're not who you think." Nathan stepped back, disbelief crashing over him like cold water. "What do you mean?" he asked, voice raw. Before she could answer, the door behind her slammed harder. This time, the men were back, marching forward with grim faces. Suddenly, Grace's hand dropped to her pocket. A flash of metal. A gun. She raised it, not at the men, but at Nathan. "No!" Emma screamed, clinging to his leg. Nathan froze, the world twisting upside down in a second. "Why, Grace?" he gasped. Tears spilled down her face. "Because I'm not just running from my past. I'm running from you." The men stopped dead, eyes locked on her gun. Nathan's mind cracked. "Me?" "Yes," Grace whispered, voice cracking. "I'm not your housekeeper." "Not really," Emma sobbed. Grace lowered the gun slowly, but didn't drop it. "I was planted here. By them," she spat, jerking her head toward the men. "By you, to keep tabs." Nathan's skin prickled, confusion swirling into cold dread. "I never told you because I couldn't. Because you weren't meant to know the truth." The men exchanged glances, tension snapping like a wire. Nathan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Grace, what are you saying?" Her next words hit harder than any punch. "I was your wife, Emma's mother, but not by choice." Emma gasped. Nathan's head spun. Grace's eyes locked on his. You set me up, framed me for those crimes, made me vanish, erased me. I lived in the shadows, hiding from you. Nathan's world shattered. Why? He choked. Why would I do that? Grace shook her head, tears pouring. Because you wanted to protect her, the real Emma. But the truth is, Emma isn't your daughter. The room went deathly silent. Emma's face crumpled in shock. Nathan's knees felt weak. The pieces tumbled into chaos. No, he whispered. That can't be. Grace took a shaky breath. The little girl you call Emma was swapped the day she was born. The men stepped closer, the air thick with danger. But why? Nathan's voice cracked. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. Because the real Emma's mother died. And you paid to cover it up, to buy a new family. Nathan backed away, heart tearing apart inside his chest. Emma's small voice trembled. Who am I then? Grace couldn't answer. Suddenly, the tallest man spoke, cold and sharp. Because the girl you raised, the one you love, that's the secret we've been protecting. And if you try to dig any deeper, Nathan, you won't like what you find. Lightning exploded outside, jagged and wild. Nathan looked at Emma, at Grace, at the men. Everything he believed was a lie. His world, a terrifying game he'd been blind to. And now the stakes were higher than ever. How deep did the betrayal go? And who, really, was the little girl in front of him? Nathan stared at Emma, at Grace, at the men in suits. His mind reeled like a storm, swirling out of control. Everything was unraveling. The lies, the secrets, the quiet life he'd built up piece by piece, all crashing down in one relentless wave. Why? Nathan's voice cracked. Why would you do this? Why hide all this from me? From Emma? Grace shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks like rain on glass. Because you had to believe something. Anything but the truth. The truth would have destroyed all of us. Emma whispered, almost breaking. Then who am I? Grace swallowed hard, but before she could answer, a sudden noise shattered the tense silence. A sharp, metallic click echoed through the room. Nathan's heart froze. The gun in Grace's hand slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. All heads snapped toward the entrance, but it wasn't who they expected. From the shadows stepped a woman, tall, with ice-cold eyes and an unnatural calm. Her voice sliced through the thick air without a hint of emotion. Enough lies! Nathan's jaw dropped. His voice caught in his throat. Who are you? She smiled, slow and cruel. I'm the reason none of this ever came to light. Nathan's pulse thundered, deafening in his ears. His mind grasped for something solid, anything to hold on to, before the ground vanished beneath him. The woman pulled back her hood, revealing a face achingly familiar. It was Emma, and not Emma at all. The real Emma, standing there, taller now, older, eyes flashing with a fire he'd never seen. The little girl beside him was smaller, different, but this woman, this was the truth past all the lies. Nathan's breath hitched, as confusion slammed into shock. The Emma in his arms looked up at the older girl with a mixture of fear and relief. Grace's face twisted, torn between hope and horror. The woman, real Emma, stepped forward and spoke, voice steady as ice and fire. "I'm the one who was taken, swapped at birth. You were never meant to have her. And this," she nodded toward the small girl trembling beside Nathan, "is not who you think she is." The room spun, everyone frozen in a moment where all the pieces fell apart completely. Nathan's hands shook uncontrollably. What do you mean?" The older Emma's eyes burned through him. "She was placed here, like me. A pawn in a game you never even knew you were part of. But I'm here now to end it." Suddenly, the front door behind them exploded inward with a violent crash. More figures poured in, men and women, well-dressed but ruthless, guns drawn, faces unreadable. They moved fast, like shadows coming alive. In the chaos, the smaller Emma screamed, clutching Nathan tighter. Grace pushed past the crowd, suddenly fierce and desperate. "Run!" she shouted, grabbing Nathan's arm. Confusion, fear, and betrayal twisted inside him. But before he could move, the older Emma stepped forward again, voice cutting clear over the storm outside. "You don't know what you've done, Nathan. None of you do. This is bigger than any of us." Then, with a cold smile, she dropped a bomb that shattered everything. "I'm not who you think I am, either." Nathan blinked, raw panic rising like bile. "What?" "I'm not your daughter." The words landed like a sledgehammer. Everyone froze. The little Emma trembled, tears streaking down her cheeks. Grace gasped, her hands trembling. The men and women with weapons closed in ever tighter, eyes sharp and unreadable. Nathan's voice cracked. "Then, who the hell are you?" The older Emma's smile twisted into something dark, almost cruel. "I'm the key to all this mess, the one they kept hidden, and now I'm here to finish what was started." Lightning burst outside, wild and furious. The city seemed less real now, like a nightmare bleeding into waking life. Nathan looked first at the girl in his arms, scared and lost. Then at Grace, shattered and trembling. Then back at the woman before him, the one claiming to be the real Emma, but saying she wasn't. His head spun. His heart broke, and a cold, terrible truth settled in. Nothing, not love, not loyalty, not family, was what it seemed. And the night was just starting. "Who are you really?" Nathan whispered. The older Emma's eyes glinted like steel. "Your destruction." The lights flickered and then cut out completely. Darkness swallowed them all. What nightmare waited in the shadows now? Who could Nathan trust? And what would be left of the family when the truth finally came crashing through? The darkness swallowed them whole. Nathan's breath hitched, heart pounding like a frantic drumbeat, echoing inside his skull. The room was silent, but for the storm thrashing against the windows, rain slapping hard, thunder growling like a wild animal chained up tight. Then the silence cracked. A soft, sharp laugh. Cold and jagged. From the shadows stepped a man. Not one of the suited strangers. Not anyone Nathan had seen before. He was thin, pale, almost fragile-looking, but his eyes blinded like ice, burning with a cruel fire. The kind of gaze that sees everything and shows nothing. Surprised? The man whispered, voice thick with something like amusement. Nathan's breath caught. Who are you?" The man smiled wider, too wide, like a mouth stretched too thin, and stepped into the faint glow of emergency lights. "Your ghost," he said simply. Nathan's fingers clenched the armrest, nails biting deep. "I don't understand." "You never did," the man said, shaking his head slowly, "because the real story was never about Grace, or Emma, or even you." Nathan's mind raced, heart slamming harder. What did he mean? The room seemed to tilt. The man's eyes flicked to the older Emma, who'd been standing silent, watching with cold fire in hers. "They told you lies. So many layers you couldn't see the truth, even if it was screaming in your face." Nathan's chest tightened, the weight of 1,000 secrets pressing down. "I'm here to show you the truth," the man breathed. "The truth you buried beneath all the masks." Before Nathan could speak, he felt a sharp, burning pain slicing through his temple, a sudden crack that wasn't real, but too vivid. His heart twisted into knots as the man's voice slid through his mind. "You're not dreaming, but you're close." His eyes blurred. The world slipped sideways. Images flashed behind his eyelids, scenes that weren't his memories, but felt like poison. Grace, the housekeeper, laughing softly, but then shadows flickered, blood on her hands, dark whispers. Emma, the little girl in his arms, morphing, twisting into a stranger with cold eyes. And then the man who stepped forward and pulled a mask from his face. Not a strange, pale stranger at all. Grace, her eyes cold and empty as stone. Not the tired woman Nathan thought he knew. Not the broken mother. But the mastermind, the puppeteer, the real architect of this nightmare. Nathan's throat closed tight. The penthouse walls seemed to close in, the storm outside fading into a distant hum. She smiled, a cruel, sharp thing. "I never ran from you," she whispered, voice dry and distant. "I ran from me, from what I became." Suddenly, the smaller Emma stepped back, eyes wide and unspeaking, and the older Emma moved forward, calm and steady. "Because we are the real family," she said, voice low, deadly calm. "We have always been." Nathan shook his head, panic clawing at his ribs. "No, that can't be." Grace's cold smile deepened. "I planted the story, set the game in motion. All those secrets, all those lies, they were mine. I built this cage, Nathan, for you, for us." The men in suits didn't move. They watched like statues, silent executors of a plan that was far bigger than any of them. And Nathan, heart crumbling, mind unraveling, falling apart in the eye of a storm that wasn't just outside the windows anymore. Emma, both of them, stood by her side. But now, the truth was clear. He never had a family. His entire life was a facade, a prison. And the real nightmare? He was never the hunter. He was the hunted. The screen in Nathan's mind went black, and then, slowly, it lit up with one final, cruel message scrawled in blood-red letters. "Welcome home, Nathan. Your real story begins now." The storm outside raged on, unstoppable, and Nathan's world shattered into 1,000 pieces of dark, twisted glass. Who was Grace, really? What game had she been playing all along? And what monsters had he been sleeping beside? He had no answers, only questions, and one terrifying certainty. Nothing was, or ever had been, what it seemed. The darkness swallowed them whole. Nathan's breath hitched. His heart pounded, loud and fast, like a drum inside his chest. The storm thrashed against the windows, rain slashing hard, thunder growling low and rough. Then a sudden crack, not of thunder, a sharp sound from beneath the floor. The noise caught everyone's attention. The suited guards froze, eyes darting to the ground. Grace's face flickered. Something like panic, or maybe fear. The older Emma stepped back, watchful. Nathan's heart hammered, confused and raw. Without warning, the floor beneath them exploded. A gaping hole tore open, jagged planks splintering and falling away like rotten wood. Nathan stumbled, nearly falling into darkness. The room tilted, a wind howling up from the depths. Below, buried deep under the penthouse, flickering lights revealed not a basement, but something else. Rows of tiny cells, stark metal cages, locked tight with heavy chains. Inside one, pale and trembling, a woman. Her eyes wide and wild. She screamed, but the bars swallowed her voice. Nathan stared, frozen. The shock slammed into him like a fist. "Is that?" Grace didn't answer. Her breath hitched. She turned away, tears spilling down her cheek like rain. "No," she whispered, voice breaking. "It can't be." The older Emma stepped closer to the edge. Lights flickered again, revealing more faces in cages. Men, women, children, all trapped, all silent. Nathan's blood ran cold. "What is this place?" he gasped. One of the men in suits, for the first time hesitant, nodded toward the cells. "This is where the real story lives. The secrets you were never supposed to see." Nathan blinked, mind twisting, horror twisting tight in his chest. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his wrist, sharp, urgent. He turned sharply. The small Emma, her eyes were different now, bright, fierce, desperate. "They're not all strangers," she said, voice shaking. "Some of those people, they're our family too." Nathan's throat tightened painfully. The pieces slammed together in a new, terrifying way. What do you mean?" he whispered. Emma's gaze locked on Grace. "They took us, swapped us, imprisoned us here, like livestock, and they made you forget." Grace collapsed then, knees hitting the floor hard. A sob tore out of her. "They erased everything. My memories, your memories, all of it." The room went silent. Only the storm outside raged louder, a wild fury matching the chaos inside. Then, a noise from one of the cages. A deep, ragged voice croaked, "Nathan, please, help us." Nathan's breath caught. He looked at Grace, at Emma, both broken, both shadows of the truth, and then the unthinkable hit him like ice. From the darkness, a slow, cold voice curled around the edges of the room. "Did you really think this was just about family?" The lights snapped on, harsh and glaring. Standing in the circle of light was a woman Nathan had never seen before. Tall, sharp-eyed, her smile cut like glass. "Everything you believed was a game," she said smoothly. Nathan's jaw went dry. "Who are you?" She stepped forward, eyes burning. "I'm the one who built this, forged the lies, crafted the cages. And you? You're just a pawn, a failure." His head spun. The world tilted again. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she reached into her coat, pulled out a folder. Inside, glossy photos of Nathan, photos of Grace, photos of both Emmas in places Nathan had never imagined. But one photo stopped him cold. A birth certificate, not for Emma, for Nathan. And next to his name, a line that shattered everything. Name changed. Real identity classified. He shook his head. Voice raw with disbelief. What is this?" The woman smiled, cruel and victorious. "You aren't who you think you are either, Nathan. You were placed here as part of the experiment." Nathan's chest tightened, breath ragged, tears burning his eyes. An experiment? He tried to protest, but felt frozen, the walls closing in. Behind him, Grace whimpered, clutching the small Emma. The woman leaned in close, voice a venomous whisper. "You were never the hunter. You were created to observe, to control, to fail." And then the noise came again, a new sound, frantic and real, from the cage below. A young boy's voice, sharp and urgent. "Daddy, Daddy, it's me!" Nathan's head snapped down. In the darkest cell, a small boy pressed his face to the bars, his eyes identical, his lips moving in desperation. "Please, please don't forget me." Nathan's world shattered. His mind screamed. Who was he? Who was Emma? And now, who was the boy calling him daddy? The room spun. The storm outside broke loose in a scream. And Nathan, trembling, broken, knew nothing would ever be the same. Not now. Not ever. Nathan's breath caught in his throat as the boy's desperate voice echoed from the darkness below. "Daddy! Daddy, it's me!" He stared, frozen. The boy's eyes burned into his soul, exact replicas of his own. Hands gripped the rusted bars, pale fingers shaking. A cold wave slammed into Nathan's chest. The room spun wildly. Everything hurt. His ribs tightened, his throat constricted. That voice, it was a scratch in his memory, a shard of broken truth. Who is he?" Nathan whispered, barely able to breathe. Grace collapsed to her knees, sobbing openly, her hands clutching the small Emma like a lifeline. The older Emma stepped forward, eyes dark, almost empty. "He's your son," she said, voice cracked but steady. "The one you lost." Nathan's knees trembled, his mind staggered. He was supposed to be without a past like this. No son, no real family, just shadows and lies. But the boy in the cage, calling him Dad, shattered that lie. Suddenly, the massive penthouse door thundered open, slammed against the wall with a sickening crash. Dust fell from the ceiling. Everyone whipped their heads around. A figure strode in slow, confident, tall, sharp, her eyes cold fire, more dangerous than anyone else in the room. "Enough games," she said, voice rough like gravel. Nathan's heart lurched. It was Grace, but not the woman on her knees. This Grace was different, strong, unbroken. Her eyes darkened with rage. She strode toward the cages, then stopped, locking eyes with Nathan. "Time to face what you buried." Before anyone could react, a blinding white light burst from beneath the floor. The entire penthouse shook violently, cracks spiderwebbed across the cracked marble floor. Nathan stumbled back as the room split open once again, revealing a hidden chamber. From the shadows emerged another figure, a man, tall, gaunt, face pale as death. His eyes burned with cold hate. Nathan froze as the man stepped into the light. "Nathan," he hissed, voice low and poisonous, "you're not the fool you think you are." Nathan's mouth dried. "Who the hell are you?" The man smiled, cold and cruel. "My name is Michael." A gasp rippled through the room. Grace's face whitened with terror. Michael's gaze fixed on Nathan. "I'm the real father of your children," he said, slow and deadly. "The one you erased." Nathan's heart stopped. "No," he gasped, shaking his head like it would wipe the words away. "Yes," Michael continued, stepping forward. Your entire identity, your memories, they belong to me." Nathan blinked, confusion and fear twisting into something worse. Dread. Everything you believed? A lie. Suddenly, Michael lunged. A quick move, blade flashing. Nathan barely caught the wrist, heart hammering. Grace screamed, pulling the smaller Emma behind her. The older Emma jumped, shocked, eyes wide. But then, Michael's mask slipped. Underneath, his face wasn't just pale. It was Nathan's. Almost. A twisted version. Scarred, cold, and cruel. The room froze. Nathan's mind shattered. What? Michael, his own double, smiled sickly. I am who you could have been, who you should be. Grace whispered, voice breaking. He's your shadow, the part you buried deep in the experiment. The men and women in suits shifted uneasily. Everything twisted again. The truth wasn't just about family, lies, or swapped children. It was about two versions of a man, one created, one erased. Two destinies locked in a deadly mirror. Nathan's knees buckled, hands trembling violently. His breath hitched. I don't understand, he gasped. Michael stepped close, voice a cold knife in his ear. You don't exist, Nathan. Not really. The storm outside screamed as lightning slammed the windows again. Nathan's world, the fragile cage built on secrets, crashed. Because the man he was holding on to, the man he saw in the mirror, was a ghost. And the real truth. He wasn't Nathan Hale at all. He was the lie, the experiment, the shadow's twin. And now, one question burned in his mind as the darkness closed in. Who then was he, really? Nathan's breath caught like a shot, his body frozen tight as the man called Michael, his twisted double, let that bombshell hang in the stale air. The truth was spinning so fast it blurred. He wasn't Nathan Hale. He was a lie, a shadow, an experiment. The storm outside screamed. Lightning blasting through the windows again, as if the city itself was trying to rip the truth apart. Nathan's head pounded. The walls seemed to close in with a cruel pressure. Then, a sudden crack snapped the silence. The floor beneath them shook violently. Dust kicked up. The metal cages rattled as if something deep below was ready to burst free. Everyone's heads whipped toward the source. Even Grace, broken moments ago, looked up, eyes wide with a terror deeper than before. From somewhere under the shattered tiles, a voice, sharp, cracking, cut through the chaos. Nathan, it's time. The air grew colder. Nathan shivered, despite the thick panic knotting his gut. And then, the entire penthouse warped. The walls melted away like smoke, the lights flickering hard and fast. Suddenly, Nathan wasn't in his penthouse at all. He was somewhere else. Darkness swallowed him whole, but a faint glow ignited in the distance. Tiny pinpricks of light, growing. A voice, familiar yet alien, whispered in his ear. Wake up, Nathan. His eyelids fluttered open. He gasped. He wasn't sitting in his high-rise prison anymore. He was lying on cold metal, arms strapped down tight. Around him, sterile white walls stretched in every direction. Strange machines beeped softly, and staring at him, eyes sharp and cruel, Grace. but not the woman he'd ever known. This Grace, a perfect stranger, smiled thinly. Her hands hovered over a console, fingers dancing with clinical precision. "Nathan," she said softly, "you're finally awake." He blinked, confusion flooding him. What is this?" "You're inside the chamber," she said, cold and calm. "The truth behind the story you can't remember." Behind her, the walls flickered and images flashed. Pictures, faces, memories beyond Nathan's control. "Everything you thought was real," Grace's voice dropped to a whisper, "was a simulation." Nathan's chest squeezed tight. His breath came fast. He struggled against the straps, panic rising like poison. She watched, unblinking. "You've been living in a dream, Nathan. A false past created to keep you subdued." He screamed inside. "No, this can't be. I'm real. This is real." Grace stepped closer, voice soft but deadly. "But it's not. You're part of a program, an experiment, testing the limits of the human mind." Nathan's fingers shook. "Why? Why me?" "Because you never existed," she said, eyes cold like ice. His world shattered again. Then the room changed. The sterile lights flickered and went dark. A new voice, louder, rougher, filled the space. "Nathan, fight it! They're lying!" Nathan jerked his head around. A figure stepped from the shadows. A man, ragged and fierce. His eyes flashed like fire. "I'm here to help you." "How?" Nathan whispered, desperation cracking through his voice. "Because I'm real, and I was trapped here too." The man leaned closer, voice urgent. "They made you forget, but you have to break free." Suddenly, the white walls shattered into pixelated fragments. Nathan's mind snapped. He saw flashes, hospital rooms, cold labs, strangers in white coats, wires hooked to his skull, and then the small Emma, the older Emma, Grace, Michael. All were fragments inside this illusion, a system designed to cage him in a twisted lie. Nathan's heart thudded so hard, it felt like his ribs would crack. "Who am I then?" His voice broke. "If none of this is real, who am I?" The man's eyes burned with iron resolve. "You're something greater, something you can't even imagine." Suddenly, alarms screamed. Red lights flooded the room. Grace's cold smile twisted. "They want to shut the simulation. End you." Nathan's breath hitched. The man grabbed his arm. "Wake up! Fight it! You're not their puppet anymore." And then, a blinding flash. Nathan's mind exploded. He felt himself tearing apart, ripping through layers of false memory. And then, he woke up, not in the penthouse, not in a lab, but in a dark room, cold and bare. Chains bound his wrists. Beside him lay a shattered mirror. His reflection stared back, only it wasn't his face. It was someone else entirely. And in the glass behind him, a whisper echoed, cruel and clear. "Welcome to the real nightmare. Nathan's chest crushed under the weight of that one terrible truth. Everything, all the lies, all the pain, every whispered word was just the beginning. Who was he, really? And what hell had he been trapped inside all this time? It was no longer about family or betrayal. It was about identity and losing it, and worse, about who held the key to unlocking the truth or destroying him forever. Nathan's breath hitched as the cold chains bit into his wrists. The shattered mirror lay beside him. His reflection was gone, replaced by a hollow, unfamiliar face that flickered like a broken image in his mind. He swallowed hard. The weight of the unknown crushed his chest. A soft hum filled the air, low and rising. The sterile walls around him began to ripple, like water disturbed in a still pond. Shadows twisted and melted, shapes taking form just beyond his sight. Then, without warning, a sharp, robotic voice cut through the silence. System override initiated. The door behind him hissed open. Bright light flooded in. Nathan blinked fiercely, shielding his eyes. The room outside was nothing like the cold chamber. Instead, it was vast and gleaming. White floors stretched in endless rows. Walls lined with glowing panels and silent machines humming quietly. And standing there, not Grace or the suited men, but a woman in a crisp lab coat looked down at him. Her smile was thin, rehearsed. "Good, you're awake," she said, voice clinical, almost bored. Nathan tried to speak, but his throat was dry, his voice a whisper at best. "Where am I? Who are you?" The woman crouched beside him, eyes calculating. "You're in the control center. Not just a test subject, but the centerpiece of the largest experiment in human history." Nathan's heart pounded. Experiment? Who did this to me? She tapped on a nearby panel, and a screen flickered to life behind her. Photos, files, faces, his face everywhere, cataloged, tracked, altered. "Your so-called past," she said, voice cold, "is nothing but a custom-crafted simulation designed to study compliance, identity, and loyalty." Nathan's hands shook. "But the girl, Grace, the others, they were real?" The woman's smile faded, replaced by something darker. "They're fragments, digital echoes merged with live data, extracted from your subconscious." The room around him shimmered again, revealing rows of pods, each holding a different person, faces frozen in pain, confusion, loss. "Control units," the woman said bluntly. Nathan's chest tightened until he couldn't catch a proper breath. His mind spun, drowning in impossible truths. Then, before he could speak, the lights dimmed, and a soft voice whispered directly into his mind. "Nathan, come back to me." It was the little Emma's voice, not the one trapped in the room, but a clear, sweet whisper that there, on the monitor, he saw something new. A clean, vibrant version of the little girl, smiling, alive. Nathan gasped. Wait, that's Emma. She's real? Not in here? The woman's hand moved fast, hitting a red button. No, she was never here, because she is the experiment you were designed to protect. Nathan's brain shattered again. What? He stammered. The woman's face twisted into a cruel smirk. The real Emma, the one you thought was a substitute, a pawn. The real Emma is the central variable, the key to unlocking your entire program. Nathan's chest seized with panic. He thought he was the prisoner, but the truth hammered down harder. He was the prison guard, the twisted architect. Oh God, he breathed, trembling. The data on the screen flipped rapidly. Images of surveillance footage, files stamped confidential, showed him watching, monitoring, controlling, watching the little Emma, protecting her, but for whose benefit? Before Nathan could process it, a sudden alarm shattered the room. Red lights flashed. The woman's eyes narrowed. They're trying to breach containment. Nathan's head whipped toward the pods. The mist inside one began to swirl violently. And then, the chamber holding the real Emma cracked. Gas hissed. Screens flickered. Nathan's breath hitched. "Wait!" he shouted. "Wait! No!" But it was too late. The pod shattered. The girl inside collapsed, gasping like she'd been underwater too long. Her eyes fluttered open, piercing, intelligent. She fixed her gaze on Nathan, and for a moment, the room froze, because the girl smiled. A smile that was too knowing. "That's where you're wrong, Nathan," she said, voice clear, sharp. "I'm not the victim here." Nathan staggered back, heart pounding, as his world broke apart again. This wasn't his nightmare, it was hers. And the real question finally slammed down. Who was the real prisoner? Who was the real monster? And who, after all this time, was truly free? The room fell into a deep, echoing silence. Only the girl's smile stayed, cold and endless, like a warning. Nathan's eyes locked on hers, and the nightmare started again. The room was thick with silence. Nathan's chest heaved, every breath sharp like shattered glass. The real Emma's smile stayed, cold and cruel, slicing through the heavy air. Nathan's hands trembled, fingers curling tight against his knees. His heart pounded like a jackhammer inside his ribs. Then she spoke again, low and steady, eyes locked on his like a flame. "This isn't about who's a victim or who's a monster. It's about control, about who gets to write the story." Nathan swallowed a lump the size of a stone. "What do you want?" The older Emma stepped closer, voice quiet but fierce. "To end this lie, to break the cage, to find out who we really are." Behind her, Grace's shoulders shook with silent sobs. The small Emma clung to Nathan's leg, eyes swimming with confusion and fear. The alarms blared suddenly, a harsh, desperate scream cutting through the tension. Red lights pulsed wildly, throwing sharp shadows across faces crumpled with pain and doubt. Then, without warning, a blast rocked the chamber. Dust and debris fell as the wall next to the cages cracked open. Voices shouted, feet pounded. Nathan's heart slammed. This was no rescue. It was warfare. From the rubble emerged a group, silent, swift, and shadowed. They moved past the stunned guards, past Grace and the two Emmas, toward the damaged cells. One cage door swung open with a harsh screech. The trembling boy inside stepped out, eyes wild, but shining with hope. "He's free," the woman in the lab coat said grimly. The older Emma looked from Nathan to the boy, her face softening just for a heartbeat. "We start here," she said, voice breaking. "With the real family. All of us." Nathan stared, the weight pressing down, something fragile stirring deep inside him. Could he trust this truth? Could he embrace the chaos and pain waiting in the wreckage? Grace reached out, gripping his arm with a trembling strength. "We're more than what they made us, Nathan. More than their cages and their lies." Nathan's breath hitched. The lump in his throat grew too thick. The storm outside had quieted, as if holding its breath. For the first time, he dared to believe there might be a way out. But then, the older Emma's eyes flicked to the cracked walls, her voice sharp again. "They're coming back. We don't have long." Nathan glanced around, the room still echoing with distant footsteps and unanswered questions. His voice was barely a whisper, raw and aching. What next? The older Emma smiled, a cold slash of hope. "We fight together until the cage falls." Nathan's heart pounded like a war drum. His world was still breaking, but maybe, just maybe, the dawn wasn't so far off. And as the distant city lights flickered back to life, something deep inside him stirred, the desperate spark of defiance. The nightmare wasn't over, but the game was shifting. And the real story? It was just beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the exclusive stories coming next. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to help us fight the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and what you think happens next. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Only true fans get how crucial it is to back the channel with these moves. Let's blow this up together.